Hey everyone, Neo once again from the Overtalker. Earlier this month, I brought you my review of Wootware's WootBook Y14. While I covered most of what I wanted to in that initial review, I wanted to take a bit more time to talk about gaming performance on the notebook. Now let's be clear, unlike the Y16 I reviewed previously, the WootBook Y14 isn't designed for gaming. However, it does feature the same AMD Radeon 780M GPU found in many gaming handhelds, just with a larger screen and a higher power budget. That means there's still some decent gaming potential here if you optimize your settings. Even if you are using the DDR5 4800 version like I was, you'll want to enable AMD's HyperRX optimizations. On a desktop monitor, this might not always be ideal depending on how close you sit to your screen. But since we're talking about a gaming notebook that has a 14-inch display, the reduced render resolution still looks great. As I mentioned in my original review, gaming on the notebook is best kept at 1280 by 800. With some titles handling 1080p reasonably well. For example, Forza Horizon 5 is an absolute pleasure on the Y14, delivering frame rates above 60 FPS at 1080p on the high setting. The game looks fantastic and I can hardly believe it's running on an APU. It's as if the Radeon 780M was made for this game. If Forza is one of your go-to titles, you're going to have a great time. Next, I tested the recently released Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, which runs its graphics on the Unreal Engine 5, although its core engine remains the same as it was in the original. This game reinforced something we already know. Resolution and texture quality significantly impact performance. That's why I originally recommended going with the DDR5 5600 version. The extra bandwidth would have given the Y14 just a bit more power to handle 1080p more smoothly. Still, I'd recommend playing at 1080p with a 30 FPS cap and low settings. It won't feel as fluid as 60 FPS, but it remains consistent and smooth, which is what ultimately matters. For Hitman World of Assassination, since it's a slower paced game, I'd personally stick with 1080p, even though the performance at 800p is obviously higher. It looks great at low to medium settings, and as long as it holds close to 40 FPS, I think most people will find it playable. But if you're someone who prefers 60 FPS or higher, 800p is the way to go. Either way, the WootBook Y14 handles Hitman better than I would have ever expected. The same applies to Cyberpunk 2077 with the latest 2.21 patch. The ray tracing is out of the question naturally, but you can achieve playable frame rates using medium to high settings. Tweaking some of these settings for a better balance between visuals and performance is what you might need to do. You'll need to experiment a bit to find what works best for you, but thankfully Cyberpunk offers a lot of customization. Personally, I found 1280 by 800 to be the sweet spot, where you can try 1080p with FSR, but FSR 3.0 in my opinion really isn't the best for this game. At 800p, the frame rate stays consistent even though it's not particularly high. Lastly, I tested Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which runs on the Unreal Engine 4. Capping the game to 30 FPS results in a fairly smooth experience, but I personally played with the uncapped frame rate on low settings, where it hovered between 40 and 42 frames per second, sometimes going higher depending on the scene. So, for my final thoughts, the WootBook Y14 delivers respectable gaming performance for a notebook that literally wasn't designed for gaming. If you manage your expectations and tweak the settings accordingly, you can definitely get some enjoyable time gaming out of it. Since my initial review, the price has dropped slightly, making it an even better value proposition than it was then. Well, that's it from me and the WootBook Y14. It's been a blast using this machine for editing and lightweight gaming over the past few months. Until the next time, take care of yourselves and peace.